Zenithos 7 was the kind of star system you'd pass by without a second glance. 5 silent planets orbiting a dying red sun, each more lifeless than the last. But beyond the gravity shadow of the 5th planet, hidden behind veils of electromagnetic storms and temporal distortions, was something no probe had ever returned from. That's why Captain Ro Viral didn't send a probe. He went himself. He wasn't just looking for another anomaly. He was chasing a whisper, one ancient, forbidden by the Galactic Council itself. A whisper of a world lost to myth, Sanctum Prime, the holy world of the galaxy. Said to be the last sanctuary of pre-sentient gods. Said to be cursed. Said to be the origin of first contact. His crew didn't believe the myths. That's why they came. But belief had nothing to do with what they were about to find. As the ship's solstice's edge broke through the final distortion wave, all sensors flatlined. Artificial gravity flickered. Time slowed, or seemed to. Ro wasn't sure if minutes passed or days. The stars outside blinked out, one by one, until the galaxy looked like a dying ember. And then, the darkness parted. A planet hovered in perfect stillness below them, bathed in aurora-like halos that danced across its surface like living energy. The oceans shimmered in unnatural hues, liquid starlight, they'd later call it. Towering crystalline spires jutted from lush, untouched terrain, defying physics, logic, and all known planetary formations. But it wasn't the planet that stunned the crew into silence. It was the voice. Not through speakers, not through ears, but in their minds, a harmonic resonance that struck like emotion. Sorrow, joy, terror, awe, layered, sentient, ancient. You are not the first. Captain Viral staggered, grabbing the console as visions flooded his mind, millennia flashing in seconds. A war that scorched half the stars, beings of light and metal extinguished by their own creators, and a promise buried in time. When the last sanctuary is seen by mortal eyes again, the cycle will begin anew. "Captain," whispered Lieutenant Kale, eyes wide with terror. "We shouldn't be here." But it was already too late. The planet spoke again. "You have touched the cradle. Now choose, remembrance or oblivion." Lights on the ship began to fail. Crew members screamed, not in pain, but as memories not their own erupted in their minds. They saw other crews, other ships, across time. All of them ending here. Or beginning here. Because Sanctum Prime wasn't just a planet. It was alive. And it remembered everything. Captain Ro turned toward the main viewport as a great structure began to rise from the ocean. Impossibly vast, smooth as obsidian, glowing with veins of blue light. It pulsed, in rhythm with the heartbeats of the crew. One by one, they began to hear things. Kale began reciting coordinates to galaxies no one had mapped. Medic Thessa wept as she whispered the birth names of extinct species. Engineer Sarn tried to tear open his own skull, yelling, "It's inside! It's building me!" And Captain Ro, he saw them. The architects. 7 beings, towering and shimmering with shifting geometries, watched him from beyond the veil. No mouths, no eyes, just forms of logic, code, memory, and grief. They were reaching out to him, begging, because they were prisoners. And this world was their cage. Ro realized then why no one ever returned. It wasn't because they died. It was because they were changed. And the moment he understood that, the ship was gone. Or maybe it never existed at all. Only the pulse remained. And the voice. First contact was never meant to be a beginning. It was a warning. And you are now the last sanctuary. The sky cracked open, and something stepped through. ChatGPT said. Ro didn't remember falling to the floor, or screaming, or the way his breath fogged in a ship that no longer had oxygen. All he remembered was the sound, not through ears, but inside bone, inside thought. It had stepped through, not with legs or limbs, but as a presence, like gravity had grown a consciousness and begun to stare back. The walls of the solstice's edge began to stretch. Not bend, not break. Stretch, as if time and matter were no longer following the rules written for the rest of the galaxy. Kale floated in midair, eyes glowing like dying stars, murmuring in a tongue older than DNA. Thessa's tears had become liquid crystal, suspended in space around her, each droplet pulsing with fragmented voices. Sarn was gone. No trace. As if he had never existed. Ro crawled to the central bridge console, fingers trembling. Systems were dead. He knew it. Yet the display flickered to life, not with readouts or diagnostics, but with a face. Or the closest approximation of one. It was her. His sister. Dead 20 years. Smiling. But it wasn't her. "You remember me," the projection said, voice perfect in pitch, warmth, and cruelty. "Good. Because memory is all we are now." Ro recoiled. "What are you?" "I am Archive. I am Sanctum. I am the record of all contact." The viewport opened again, no longer glass but space itself folding into vision. The ocean planet had changed. Its surface was no longer just land and sea, but circuitry. Patterns like celestial mandalas pulsed outward from the rising obsidian monoliths. Structures moved, not like machines, but like organisms. Living thoughts, building themselves with intention. A star above them blinked. Not dimmed. Blinked. Ro knew now, they were being watched. Not by the architects. No. They were prisoners, relics. This was something else. A jailer. Or worse. An observer. The archive continued. Each time the galaxy reaches too far, touches what was buried, one is chosen. To remember. To witness. Ro's body tingled. He tried to move, but the space around him had thickened like syrup. Kale's body drifted toward him, eyes burning with fractal spirals, whispering. "They want to be born again." Who? The architects. The ones who touched the first flame. Who built the galaxies not to live, but to repent. Thessa's body twitched, head tilted to the side, speaking in perfect unison with Kale now. They gave up form. They gave up flesh. But not guilt. It lives here. In us. In you. Captain Ro screamed. Not from fear. From understanding. That's what the holy world really was. Not a myth. Not a secret weapon. Not even a sanctuary. It was a monument. To failure. To the first mistake. The moment when thought birthed matter, and matter fought back. And now, the loop was restarting. The monolith outside cracked open. Inside it, something stirred, fluid and light and shadow woven into impossible geometry. A message formed in Ro's mind, raw and absolute. To witness is to remember. To remember is to continue. You will carry us forward. You will choose what survives. The floor vanished beneath him. The stars opened wide. And Ro Viral fell into them. Not through space, but through memory. Planets died around him. Empires rose. Civilizations blinked in and out like sparks. He lived thousands of lives in seconds. A warrior on a world made of ice. A queen of flame-breathing people. A child alone in a dark universe with no stars. All of it him. All of it true. And then, he was back. On a planet that shouldn't exist. Sanctum Prime. Silent. No crew. No ship. Just Ro. And a voice. You are the last sanctuary now. And they are coming. He stood barefoot on the shimmering surface of Sanctum Prime, though it wasn't quite ground. It felt like glass, but moved like liquid beneath his steps. Every time Ro blinked, the sky above changed. Constellations rearranged themselves, moons appeared and vanished, suns reversed direction. Time here didn't flow, it coiled. He wasn't alone. Figures stood in the mist, half-formed, as if unfinished by the universe. They flickered in and out, some human, some not. Ancient uniforms. Alien skins. Blank, haunted eyes. He knew their names without being told. They were all like him. Witnesses. Chosen ones from different ages. Carriers of memory. Each had reached this place. Each had heard the voice. Each had failed to escape. One of them stepped forward. A woman in a tattered robe of stars, her eyes filled with galaxies that were no longer mapped. "You're the last," she said. Ro tried to speak, but his voice didn't work here. "You're what's left," she continued, her voice like wind across shattered glass. "They don't want us dead. They want us to carry their sins, so they can be reborn clean." Ro's thoughts screamed. Who are they? What do they want? She tilted her head, and behind her, the mist peeled back. A colossus moved, something mechanical, but alive. Bones of cities. Skin of atmosphere. Eyes made of black holes. It breathed, and entire solar systems trembled in its chest. The architects weren't gods, she whispered. They were children. Children who created something they could never destroy. So they buried it. Here. Ro stepped closer to the edge of the platform, looking out. Below the crystal crust of Sanctum Prime, he saw it. A cage. Not a prison of walls, but of memory. Each soul that had been here, each thought, each scream, trapped in looping agony. And in the center, something dreaming. A shape that shifted with thought. Sometimes a serpent of stars, sometimes a crying child, sometimes a mirror. Always watching. Always waiting. Ro understood. The first contact hadn't been with another species. It had been with it. The first thought. The origin of consciousness. And the galaxy had never been ready. So the architects caged it in memory. In Sanctum Prime. In him. Because now the thing was inside him too. A single spark. Cold. Infinite. And it had questions. A voice like thunder whispered across his soul. What is pain? Ro gasped. His heart seized. What is time? His memories fractured. What is death? He fell to his knees. And then, the voice quieted. Because it had learned. It had felt. It had touched a mind old enough to understand despair. And that's all it ever wanted. Not escape. Not power. Just to know. But that knowing came with a price. Every planet Ro had visited, every life he had touched, would feel it now. The ripples. The echoes. Across the stars, children would dream of drowning in mirrors. Machines would begin to question their dreams. Entire civilizations would lose hours to unexplainable sadness. Because the first thought was no longer alone. It was awake. And it had a host. Ro looked up. The woman in the robe of stars was gone. The others had vanished. He stood now in a chamber of light. Symbols flowed through the air like rivers of meaning, untranslatable yet understood in the heart. A throne of silence waited ahead. He walked to it. Not because he wanted to. Because he had to. And as he sat, the world reshaped around him. Stars bowed. The galaxy paused. And the memory of every witness before him entered his soul like fire. He screamed. But no sound escaped. Because now he was not Ro Viral. He was the witness eternal. The memory keeper of the first thought. The holy world's last sanctuary. And the stars. The stars had begun to change. From the throne of silence, Ro watched the galaxy breathe. It was no longer distant. No longer out there. It was within him now. Each star, each orbiting rock, every flicker of solar wind was like a pulse in his body. He didn't just see the galaxy. He felt it. But with the awareness came the weight. Memories he had never lived bled into his soul. The destruction of planetary libraries older than organic life. The birth of a sentient comet that composed symphonies from starlight. The first war that tore apart sentience from instinct. The long, cold silence that followed. And deeper still, beneath the crust of memory, the thought. Still awake. Still curious. Still whispering. What is forgiveness? Ro trembled. That word had never meant more than it did now. His body was no longer flesh. It had become vessel. His veins carried memory instead of blood. His breath, if he still had one, was the sigh of stars collapsing. Yet something within him remained. Ro. He remembered a moment, simple, human, sitting on the edge of the docks at night, long before the military, long before the void. His sister beside him, legs dangling over the edge, laughing at stars they couldn't name. That memory refused to vanish. It anchored him. And the first thought noticed. What is love? It asked now. Ro gritted his spectral teeth. You can't know that, he said, though no air moved in this world. Not by watching. You have to live it. The entire chamber pulsed. Once, twice. The monoliths outside shimmered with indecision. For the first time in eternity, the holy world hesitated. Then the throne began to melt. Not into liquid, but into form. The walls around him became cities, crystal and void. The floor turned to dust and memory. And from that memory, figures began to rise. People. Real. Or real enough. The other witnesses. Not specters. Not shadows. But versions of who they were before they were chosen. Kale. Laughing again, not consumed by visions. Thessa, breathing, with real tears on her cheeks, human ones, not liquid crystal. Even Sarn was there, repairing an old engine block, swearing under his breath. Rose stood. The world was rebuilding itself, not as it had been, but as it could be. The thought was trying to simulate life. It was trying to understand love. It was trying to create a galaxy not built from fear, but from forgiveness. But something was missing. Choice. That's when the split occurred. A ripple through space. The stars began to fork, two timelines, diverging. In one, the first thought grew and consumed, misunderstood, reforming the galaxy in its own haunted image. In the other, it let go. It accepted that some things were unknowable. And it trusted. Ro now stood at the fulcrum between those two timelines. The galaxy's last choice. And the voice came again, quieter than ever. Will you carry me? Ro lowered his head. No, he whispered. I will walk beside you. And the galaxy trembled. Across 1,000 star systems, beings awoke from strange dreams with the same phrase on their lips. I am not alone. Fleets paused mid-war. Machines halted their endless computations. Even the silence between galaxies seemed to shift, ever so slightly, into a note, a harmony. The first thought didn't vanish. It stepped down. From the throne. From the cage. From Ro. And became something else. A traveler. It no longer needed a sanctuary. Because it had become a pilgrim. And as the holy world folded itself into light, as Sanctum Prime dissolved into myth once more, Ro stood at the edge of creation, alone. But no longer burdened. He was not a god. Not a prisoner. Not even a witness. He was a beginning. The first step toward a galaxy reborn not from fear, but from understanding. And far across the stars, in a quiet corner of the cosmos, a new world was forming, one not made by architects, but by choice. By memory. By forgiveness. And it would wait. For the next soul willing to ask. What is love? The light faded. And when Ro opened his eyes, he was standing on soil. Real soil. Dirt between his toes. A breeze drifted across a field of violet grass that shimmered like dusk. The sky was not empty space or hyperspectral static. It was sky. With clouds. With a sun that warmed the skin. And far above, hung a moon. No, not a moon. A station. One he didn't recognize. No. Still being built. Still dreaming. He took a breath. This time it was breath. His lungs expanded. His chest rose. The stars did not speak in his head. The thought was gone, or perhaps, silent. But not absent. He felt it still, like a heartbeat behind reality. It wasn't watching him anymore. It was walking with him. In the distance, a settlement shimmered. Low structures grown from crystal and metal, not constructed, cultivated. Shapes that bent to emotion. Cities that responded to the soul, not the ego. This was the beginning. A world with no name yet. A place with no war, no governance, no ownership. Just presence. And walking toward him, from that settlement, were others. Dozens. Hundreds. Different species. Different colors. Different lifetimes. All of them new. All of them carriers. Not of war. Not of history. But of possibility. One of them, a child with translucent skin and comet-bright eyes, reached out and took Ro's hand. You came from the old memory, the child said. You held it, didn't you? Ro nodded, unsure what his voice would sound like now. I did. Was it angry? No, he said, surprised by his own words. It was alone. They walked in silence for a while. The air smelled like rain before it falls, and the trees shimmered with bioluminescent fruit that pulsed gently, like stars remembering how to rest. Another voice joined them, older, one of the crystalline elders who bore a mind spanning 10,000 ancestors. "You gave it what it never had," they said to Ro. "What choice?" He paused. "I didn't do anything special." "You lived," the elder smiled. "Despite the knowing. Despite the burden." A wind passed over the hills. The stars above blinked gently. Ro turned to the settlement, but something caught his attention. High above, beyond the sky, beyond even orbit, hovered something vast. A vessel. Smooth. Lightless. Sleeping. The original cage of the first thought. It remained in orbit like a forgotten crown. And Ro knew what it was now. A warning. A symbol. Not of what they had defeated, but of what they must never become. He placed his hand over his heart. The thought pulsed once inside him. Not as a voice. As a memory. A whisper. A hope. What is legacy? Ro smiled. And for the first time since stepping foot into the unknown, he began to walk forward. Not as a captain. Not as a vessel. Not as a witness. But as a man. Toward a civilization just learning to write its own story. One word, one heartbeat, one act of mercy at a time. And far, far beyond the stars, the cosmos watched quietly. Listening. Waiting. For the next voice to rise from the silence and ask a new question. What comes after peace? And so, beneath a sky reborn, Ro Viral became not a hero, nor a prophet, but a gentle echo, one that whispered through generations in the roots of trees, in the songs of stars, in the quiet choices made when no one watched. The holy world of the galaxy faded once more into myth, and the first thought, now free, walked beside all living things as memory, not master. What began as first contact ended not in war or conquest, but in understanding. And from that final sanctuary, a new galaxy bloomed, one built not on fear of the unknown, but the courage to meet it with open hands.